Well, hello and welcome today. This is KenDFoster. The show is Voices of Courage. And today we're talking about the courage to run towards your Goliaths. What the heck is that? Well, think about this. A lot of people are trying to do everything they can not to feel any pain or suffering or misery or anything in their life, right? They're just running away from it. They're trying to figure out how to just feel blissful all the time without doing the work. So today we're talking about the advantages of setting amazing goals, struggling where you need to struggle, grow where you need to grow, step into the power that lives within each one of us, and be able to master your life in ways that maybe you've never thought about before. So today I have a powerful guest. He's got a new book out, and I'm going to introduce him just in a second, as soon as I take a break. And when we come back, you too are going to be able to overcome your Goliaths. We'll be right back.
Are you over 50? Would you like to get up to 33% more income in retirement? Then call now for this free book, Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers. This free book reveals little-known secrets about annuity strategies that will help you make the right choices before buying an annuity. Call right now for your free book, and as a bonus, we'll also throw in a free annuity rate report, both absolutely free for calling Annuity General today.
Call 800-510-0470.
Attention Zantac users. The FDA requested manufacturers to pull Zantac off the market, noting exposure to unacceptable levels of a cancer-causing agent. If you or a loved one was diagnosed with cancer after regular use of Zantac, you might be entitled to financial compensation. If you have any of these cancers, time is critical. Call now for a free consultation. If you don't win, you pay nothing.
Call 800-797-7641.
Are you feeling stuck or in a holding pattern with your business or life, and you're not doing the things you want or love? Then at some point, you're going to be faced with a decision. You'll either choose to keep living in your comfort zone and risk a life of mediocrity, or increase your courage, step into your power, and forge into the unknown, where everything new becomes possible. If you're truly ready to live masterfully, then you need KenDFoster's newest book, The Courage to Change Everything, Strategies and Wisdom to Transform Your Life One Day at a Time. This powerful but simple guide provides you with 365 days of life-transforming wisdom, profound questions, and action steps that will increase your strength and open the doors to success. Stop wondering why your business or life isn't working. The answers are available now. Imagine if you had more courage or another chance to start following your dreams. To pick up your copy of The Courage to Change Everything, visit thecouragetochangeeverything.com. That's thecouragetochangeeverything.com.
Well, welcome back to the show. This is KenDFoster, and in studio is Dr. Eli Jones. Doctor, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much, Ken. I'm so looking forward to this.
I'm so looking forward to it too, and I really loved your story. I'm going to give you an introduction here. Dr. Eli Jones is a professor of marketing, Lowry and Peggy Mars Eminent scholar, and former dean of Mays Business School at the alma mater, Texas A&M University.
There you go.
And I'm going to talk about your story, but I love your story. Barely in their teens, Dr. Eli Jones and his wife, Fern, married and overcame seemingly unsurmountable challenges as they rose from poverty to positions of influence. I can hardly wait to hear your story.
It's a long story.
Well, we'll have to kind of cut it short.
We'll have to cut it short, right?
But it's a powerful story, because so many people today are struggling at different levels. Just because they have a little they may be living in a nice house, but they may be mortgaged to the hilt, and they may have a nice car, but again, they're making these payments, and it looks like they're okay, but they're struggling.
Yeah. So
let's talk about your story. What happened? Where did you go from poverty to prosperity? What happened there?
Oh, well, I'll start out. I'm a strong man of faith, and I am so thankful to God for this whole journey, this faith journey, which we lay out in Run Toward Your Goliaths. But starting out, I was a radio broadcaster, and I had a lot of fun while I was an undergraduate at Texas A&M. I would commute every weekend, about 107 miles every weekend each way. And I'd work at a radio station in a major market area, which is Houston. I did that while I was an undergrad, junior and senior years. I met my wife during that time. And then, we got married and started having children right away. So I tell people I had to grow up fast. So, yeah. And so I ended up moving. We got married. We moved back to this home area, which is Bryan College Station. And I then pursued an MBA and started my second career. So radio was the first. The second, I got into sales and sales management. I worked for 3 global companies: Quaker Oats, Nabisco, and Frito-Lay. And I worked in key account sales. So I called on major supermarket chains. And I would work with the individual sales reps calling on the stores at the store level. And we would get new items listed in those major accounts and also promoted. And I moved up pretty quickly. So I started out in grocery stores, working shelves, resetting merchandise and all that. And then thank God I caught my stride, if you will. And I started moving up in the organization and got promoted 3 times with Quaker Oats, and was recruited over to Nabisco. Took over the lowest performance sales team in one of our divisions. And it was just a miracle, really. We were able to turn that team around in 1 year. So we went from number 86 in the division to number 2 in just 1 year. It took a lot of work, a lot of prayer.
There's a mindset that goes with that. I mean, what we're talking about is, you had this courage to, go out and do what a lot of people wouldn't have done. Okay. You went out and, and you applied, you took action, you did what you needed to do. And then when you got the challenge of the sales team, what's that mindset about? Right.
Yeah. So first of all, the mindset is we can accomplish, we can conquer. And really talking to my teammates about it, even though we were last in the division, I believed we had the talent. I believe that we had the skills, certainly had the resources to build. So it was really helping the teammates understand that, yes, we can conquer this. And then I worked with them very closely, and we were able to turn everything around. We called on our clients. I worked with each salesperson calling on clients. And I think what happened is, when I think about that team back then, and we're talking about many years ago now, 1990, say, but I had everyone from the newbies, the new hires, all the way to the plateaued salespeople. And those performers were high performers at one point. All right. They stuck around. They were close to retirement, as it turns out. And so as I was working with the team, I had to understand each one in their life stage, if you will. And then in order
that's a real important point.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, where people are in their life stage. Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
And how do you motivate the different life stages, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's right. So the good news is there's research in this area, the career stages of salespeople. And I actually dove into that particular research stream. And then I was able to actually apply some of what we know in the research area of career stages of salespeople. And by the way, I found my calling in this very space. So I discovered, as I was working with this team and looking at research in this area, that, hey, you know what? I might be able to become a researcher and do the research and publish the results so that companies can use the research studies. And so it was right in that time frame that I realized that God had given me a higher calling. I love to teach. All right. In fact, I've done the 5-fold spiritual gifts test, and I'm an apostle and a teacher. And it's amazing because I didn't know it then, right? But I certainly felt it.
So that brings up a question. So it's there's a lot of folks. I'm working with a group right now. I teach podcasting.
Yeah.
And I work with a group that we're trying to find their true voice, and trying to find their passion, right? In podcasting, right?
Absolutely.
We're looking at mission and values and, the names of the shows, really the basic stuff.
Yeah.
And, a lot of them struggle with that. How did you find that voice, that passion, that knowing?
Yeah. So I actually lay that out in the book, Run Toward Your Goliaths. And I called it Crawling, Walking, Running. All right. So
I'm putting the book on the screen so we can all see it. It's Run Toward Your Goliath, Eli Jones. By the way, congratulations on the new book. That's awesome.
Thank you so much. It's on Amazon. It's also on my website, Eli Jones.
Okay, great. All right. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying that, when I think about it, I was going through a crawling stage, and this book is meant to inspire. It is about a faith journey. And certainly when you asked the question about moving from poverty, right, to prosperity, well, it's that crawling stage. And during that crawling stage, many people, not just myself, many people are just they're trying different things. And in this book, I encourage people to try. I'm in a university environment. I talk to a lot of students as they're beginning to launch their careers. I've got 10 grandchildren, so I'm also encouraging them to try some things, right? Don't forget to explore. Now is a great time in your life to explore lots of different things. That's in that early stage. That's kind of that crawling stage, right? And as you're trying things, I believe God then sends you signals. It's something that you feel. It's something that you sense. In the book, I talk about these 5 stages of finding your calling. All right. So this one is, when you start out, you're kind of afraid.
You know what, Eli, Dr. Eli, I've got to take a quick break. We come back. Let's get into those 5 stages of calling. And that'd be great. So we'll take a quick break.
Here's an important message from the Diabetes Solution Center. Diabetics understand all too well the pain of pricking your fingers, but now by wearing a small remote device called a continuous glucose monitor or CGM, you can immediately reduce your pain. It's easy to use and helps you make more accurate diabetes treatment decisions. If you are testing your blood sugar 4 or more times daily, injecting insulin 3 or more times daily, or using an insulin pump, call the Diabetes Solution Center right now.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call now.
CBD, you've heard about it. It's helping people relieve chronic pain, improve sleep, and reduce stress. But how do you find science-based products that feel right for you? Feel Good Hemp was started after the founders used CBD oil to help their dad heal from a 3-month-to-live diagnosis. They deliver all-natural, lab-tested, high-quality products at affordable prices. So visit feelgoodhemp.org/courage and be sure to use coupon code COURAGE25 to get 25% off your first order. Well, welcome back to Voices of Courage. I'm interviewing Dr. Eli Jones. We'll be right back with that interview. What I want to share is that if you are enjoying this podcast and this TV show, I encourage you to tell your family and friends about it. We're on about 185 countries right now. We're in 185 countries, and we're on all kinds of different networks. So, you can just tell them to tell Alexa, Cortana, or Siri, play Voices of Courage podcast. They'll come right up for them. Also, if you'd like to subscribe to us, go to voicesofcourage.us so you never miss a show. All right, back to Dr. Eli. Dr. Eli, man, it's so good to have you today. All right, we're talking about your book and the Run Toward Your Goliaths. Most of us want to run away from our Goliaths. I know that.
Right, sure.
And some of the stages that you've written about in the book. So let's go into that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me give just a quick overview in terms of the sections of the book. The first is build on your foundation. All right, build on your foundation. And so in that section of the book, I'm talking about, hey, if we are believers, we already have the victory. We just have to get our groove back. And so it's finding that opportunity on your foundation, building on that foundation. The next part is find your rhythm. Find your rhythm. Now, you can see in my background, I'm actually a musician. And I've been a musician for many, many years. And when I talk about finding your rhythm, the way I associate it is for those people who are not musicians, but maybe love music, watch a live band and watch how the musicians, even though they're playing different instruments, they sort of find their rhythm together. And it's really interesting. My wife and I have had several bands. You start out with a new band and, you're just kind of playing your instruments. But now you're starting to find how you can gel together, right? It becomes something that is special. You create beautiful music. When I get to that part of the book, Find Your Rhythm, I include in there, using music as an example, I include in there, as you're out and you're discovering, there are going to be things that will come your way and you'll discover your rhythm or your calling. And that first step is something that I know people relate to this. You're out and you're doing something, and some people may look at it and say, you know what, you do that pretty easily. All right. When something comes easily to you and it's difficult for others. All right. I'll go give an example. I know, Ken, you relate to this. Speaking. Let's talk about speaking. So some of us, the first time you go out on a stage and you're speaking to an audience, that is really scary. You do it enough times, and then it becomes maybe easier for you. And you can look and hear from others. They'll say, wow, that looks easy for you to do. To me, that's the first stage. That's the first hint that maybe you're starting to find your calling. All right. And there are 4 other steps, but go ahead, Ken.
Well, I think, for me, when I'm finding my Goliath in speaking scared the crap out of me.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember, as a young child being in front of a class and just shaking. I would just shake, and so I thought, well, I'm not going to live with that. But now it's my career.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I agree with that. So would you say, people need to kind of like, somebody said to me, well, you can speak. And back then I'd be like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Right. But there was something inside of me that wanted to do that.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
That's right. That's
the key, isn't it?
That is. There's a part of you that wants to. That's exactly right. I remember I had a speech class at the undergraduate level, and I'll never forget this. So the professor had each of us introduce ourselves. Right. It was a class of, call it 40 people. And so I remember shaking. I was trembling as I watched each person stand and introduce themselves. And when it got to my turn, I was trembling so badly that I couldn't even introduce myself well. All right. But wait. I wanted to be better. That's what you're saying. I wanted to be better at it. And so I just kept going. I kept trying. Every opportunity I had to get in front of an audience to speak, I took that opportunity until it looked like it was so easy for me. All right. That was, in my opinion, that's the first stage of finding your calling. The next one is, rather than wearing you down, your calling will energize you. Right. So people will try different things and they get worn out. But man, when you're starting to find your rhythm, find your calling, that next stage is you're starting to get energized by it, whatever that thing is. Right. That to me is the beginning of finding your rhythm or finding your calling. All right. The next one that I put in the book is your calling will fulfill you. It'll scratch an itch that you can't reach any other way. Instead of dreading it, you look forward to the next time you get to do it, building on that.
I agree with that. And, when I was in corporate America, I was a stockbroker, security principal, arbitrator for NASD for many years. And I remember that itch inside thinking, I want to be more than just the stockbroker. I want to be the manager. I want to learn how to connect with everybody in the audience, but I was afraid. Yeah. I was afraid to go to my manager at the time and say, listen, I'd like to be your assistant.
Yeah. Right. But
I took him to lunch and I did it anyway. I was like, I thought I've got to get out of where I am. There was something driving me, right?
That's right. Your comfort zone.
Your comfort zone. I was in the comfort zone. By the way, it was uncomfortable.
It was uncomfortable, right? So you got to get out of that comfort zone, right? Yeah. And so we say that, and I know many of us say that to people, but I tell you what, let me give you one example, and it's scriptural. All right. Think about Peter getting out of the boat and walking toward Jesus. All right. Think about that. Focusing on Jesus, right? But the part that gets me is I can only imagine Peter inside that boat looking over and getting out of the boat to step onto the water. That's getting out of your comfort zone. That comfort zone is the boat. You're safely floating in that boat. But Jesus said, come. And Peter had the courage to put that foot right out of the boat and begin walking on water while focusing on Jesus. When we talk about growth, right? Growth requires us to get out of our comfort zones, right? We've got to do that. And that's what you're saying. That first time we were both trembling, we were afraid, but we pushed ourselves. We said, hey, we want to do this. Yeah. All right. Okay. The fourth stage in this.
Well, wait, I got to take another quick break.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
We'll take a break. We'll be right back in the fourth stage here.
Okay. Sounds good.
If you or someone you love has developed Parkinson's disease after being exposed to gramoxone or any herbicide containing the deadly chemical paraquat, you may be entitled to financial compensation. If you developed Parkinson's and worked or lived on a farm that used paraquat herbicide treatments with gramoxone, Firestorm, or any listed brand, call now. You may be entitled to financial compensation. There are time deadlines, so don't delay. If you don't win, you pay nothing.
800-771-3380.
Hi, folks. Medicare Part C plans with extra benefits like getting money added back to your Social Security check may now be available to you in your zip code. Make sure you're not missing out. It's simple. 1, call the number on your screen. 2, they'll look up your zip code and see if you're eligible. 3, they'll check for plans with extra benefits like prescriptions, dental coverage, and the benefit that adds money back to your Social Security check every single month. Call now.
I called to get everything I deserve. I called to check my zip code for a plan with a benefit that adds money back to my Social Security check.
I called to check my zip code.
Millions of people have called the Medicare coverage helpline. Call, check your zip code, see if you're eligible, and get what you deserve. Call now.
Call 1-800-374-2308. That's 1-800-374-2308 now.
Well, welcome back, everybody. This is your host, KenDFoster, and I'm talking to Dr. Eli Jones. And he is a lifetime achievement. He's received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the American Marketing Association and Sales Special Interest Group, and is the co-author of Selling ASAP and Strategic Sales Leadership Breakthrough Thinking for Breakthrough Results. We're also talking about his new book, right? Yeah. And by the way, I want to tell my listening audience where to get the new book, Running Towards Your Goliaths. Where can the listening audience get this?
Yes, so it's on Amazon, and it's also available through my website, elijones.com.
Okay, elijones.com. There you go. I'm going across the screen right now. All right, Dr. Eli. Okay, fourth step in the process here.
Yeah, and so what we're talking about is finding your rhythm or discovering your calling. And we talked a little bit about earlier getting out of that comfort zone. And so I walked through the first three. The fourth step that I have in the book is, when you're done, when you have found your calling, when you feel that, you know what, I'm pretty good at this. I got a lot of people telling me I'm pretty good at this. I'm pretty good. That's fourth step. But here's the fifth one. When you realize it's not you in the first place, it's God working through you.
Now, a lot of people are going to have a hard time with that. What does that mean? It's not me, it's God, right?
Yeah. So first of all, we're talking about faith, aren't we? I mean, we're talking about faith. Yeah, we're talking about faith. The faith to get out of your comfort zone, right? To get out of that boat, as I was mentioning, as Peter had to do, all right? And so Peter was able to walk on water because he kept his eyes focused on Jesus. He didn't look down, right? And so he was able to do it because he was focused on Jesus. In many cases, at least for me, I can speak for me. I can't speak for anyone else. But there were times when I was working toward getting out of that boat, getting out of my comfort zone. And the way I was able to do it was to hold on to my faith. I had to believe that God was with me. All right. That's what the Run Toward Your Goliaths is all about. You go back to David and Goliath. Gee whiz, man. Are you kidding me? A shepherd, a teenager, taking on this giant. And not only that, without armor. All right. He was going to do it his way, but he had the faith. He had the confidence to do it, knowing that God was on his side. I had to hold on to that many times. I had to hold on to that story, hold on to that faith, which enabled me to get out of the comfort zone, which enabled me to keep my focus where it needed to be so that I can go and do those things. And so the 5 steps that I talked about, including, when I was doing it, I kind of took my mind off of Jesus and I put my mind on me for a minute. I thought, hey, people tell me I'm pretty good at this. I'm pretty good. But the realization was, it wasn't me in the first place. It was God working through me. It was that ability to conquer the giant because I believed that he was with me. That's what I mean.
Wow, that's powerful. I know in my own life, I've been humbled many times into that place where we really understand that it is not about us. It's coming through us. It's speaking through us. It's using our hands and our eyes and our feet to bring in the manifestations that come through us. So I couldn't agree with you more. In your book, you talk about the anchor and the float strategy for families. Love to just touch base with that. What is that?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. And thank you for reading the book. I really appreciate that. I prayed over the book so that God would have a special revelation for each reader. Let's talk about anchor and float. So, you'll recall that we got started at a very early age, my wife and I, barely out of our teenage years. And, it was one of those kind of divide and conquer strategies. So, both of us were working at the time, but we started having children. And so we had to figure things out at a very young age. We had to figure out, how are we going to raise our family and at the same time provide for the family. And so for us, it was a matter of teaming up. We said, okay, one of us is going to have to anchor the family, all right, and the other is going to have to float. So in the boat, we talk about, you see a ship out floating, and that ship can be anchored. And so my wife became the anchor for the family. All right, it just worked out that way for us. She became the anchor, which enabled me to go out into the fog like a ship and float and try things and find my calling so that we could have the resources for the family. So for us, it was our way of trying to take on two big things, raising a family and providing for a family. And so in the book, I challenge the reader to find your anchor and float strategy. What works best for you? I've got a daughter who's truly the floater, and her husband is the anchor. It just works out for them. All right. So I think in today's world, we just have to figure out, how do we accomplish this? Sometimes we've got, folks, parents, where both people are working. You still got to figure out how to anchor and float at the same time. And so that's what the anchor and float strategy was. It was something that worked for us for nearly 40 years.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really love that. Well, listen, I got to close out this segment. Please stay with me for some of you that are on our half-hour shows. We're going to close this out for you. But if you want to get the full webcast, you can go to voicesofcourage.us to see all of the Dr. Eli Jones interview with me. But right now, I got to close this out.
Are you being audited, and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
If you or someone you love has developed Parkinson's disease after being exposed to gramoxone or any herbicide containing the deadly chemical paraquat, you may be entitled to financial compensation. If you developed Parkinson's and worked or lived on a farm that used paraquat herbicide treatments with gramoxone, Firestorm, or any listed brand, call now. You may be entitled to financial compensation. There are time deadlines, so don't delay. If you don't win, you pay nothing.
800-771-3380.
Do you listen to the TV on high volume or have trouble hearing conversations? Then you would benefit from hearing aids. Don't waste thousands on expensive hearing aids when you can get Nano's revolutionary technology for just $397. Don't be fooled by higher-priced hearing aids. The CIC Recharge is a true hearing aid, not an amplifier. With rechargeable technology many customers say is superior to more expensive models. Call now and get not one but two Nano hearing aids for just $397. Plus, we'll add a portable charging dock and ship your order absolutely free. The CIC Recharge has a tiny in-the-ear canal design that is nearly invisible. Why keep missing out on important conversations or waste thousands of dollars? Call and get two CIC Recharge hearing aids for only $397 and free shipping.
800-817-7419. Again, 800-817-7419.
Well, we're back here with Voices of Courage. I'm interviewing Dr. Eli Jones. The name of our show today, of course, is The Courage to Run Toward Your Goliaths. He's got a new book out, and we're talking about that book. you know, one thing that is also in the book, Dr. Eli, is your victory groove. I love that when I read that, the victory groove. I want to be in the victory groove.
And you know, it was fun. I was working on a podcast, and I was thinking, okay, what would be kind of a catchy title? I prayed about it for sure. And I was absolutely surprised when I Googled it. No one had taken this victory groove piece. But listen to this. This is what God put in me. Number one, this victory groove. So remember King David. So we started out with the teenage David, right? Taking on the Goliath. But now go back to King David. You remember when he got the Ark of God? What did King David do? He danced. David danced with all of his might. There were musicians around. The music was playing, and David danced. All right. That's the victory groove, right? That is the victory groove. I think today, in today's world, coming off this pandemic, you think about the anxiety that people are having now. All right. The number one mental health issue today is anxiety. It's the fear of the unknown, which is anxiety. You know, even at universities, we're having to hire extra people to help and counsel our students through anxiety. Anxiety from various means, but certainly the pandemic created a lot of anxiety. And so when I think about that, and I think about that time that we went through, I remember 2020 very well. You know, I remember how scary it was, right? You know, all of a sudden we had to shelter in place. Many of us had to be away from our families, all right? We have adult children, so we were away from our children, away from our grandchildren. We were hunkered down. We were afraid. Many of us were trembling, right? We lost our groove. We lost our groove. Even believers, I'm a believer and I talk to other believers. We kept saying, what we know God is in control, right? It may not look like it. It may not feel like it, but we do know that God is in control, but we're still a little anxious. We lost our groove. Victory Groove is my podcast, and I interview people who have overcome many, many challenges. I've had people who were diagnosed with cancer, and we've talked through what that felt like to hear that report from the doctor. And many of them have overcome, they've recovered, they've been healed, right? And I've had people that, you know, I've even had one person who was diagnosed with pediatric cancer. So he was at 2 years old, he was diagnosed with cancer, all right? And what did he do? He found his rhythm. He found out that what God intended for him to do was to start businesses. So he's a serial entrepreneur. So he's given life to business and he's hiring people. All right. He found his rhythm, and that's what he was called to do, overcoming that challenge. All right. Victory Groove.
Well, let me add that, Eli, I love that. What would you say in your life? What was the biggest challenge that you have overcome, and how did you overcome it? Like, what was the, you know, I hear you, the pandemic, we were all shut down. You're wondering what the next step is. And, you know, a lot of people lost their groove, like you said. You know, what was your challenge that you overcame?
Yeah, so many of us have multiple Goliaths, right? So I remember when I was talking, I remember talking to my publishers, is it Run Toward Your Goliath? I said, no, we have many of them over the course of a lifetime. So I started, poverty is a serious challenge.
That is.
Poverty is a giant. Poverty is a Goliath. All right, people are stuck in poverty. All right, and so thank God.
How come people are stuck in poverty and you're not?
There are so many different circumstances. It's really hard to generalize, and I want to be sensitive to that. But it is hard to generalize. There's so many different circumstances, but I can only speak about mine. All right. So for me, thank God, I had a great role model. My dad had a 6th grade education from Louisiana, and he started his own business. He became a serial entrepreneur. Started out in dry cleaning. I had a chance to watch him. All right. I was a youngster just watching him. He was a man of few words. So he wasn't a teacher in that way. He didn't talk a lot. He did a lot. That's what he did. And he held on to his faith. But I watched it, and that gave me just that kind of a model. Being around a role model that way, it really expands your thinking. It gives you some possibilities. I saw my dad with a 6th grade education become a very successful entrepreneur, and he became a serial entrepreneur. So he had different businesses, and being around that, right, gave me a vision, if you will, that I can do that. I can overcome that, right? Even with not a formal education, my dad was able to do it. Okay, so that's one. So poverty. I had a good role model. And I would encourage listeners, if you don't have a role model, find one. I talk a lot about.
I think that's the key right now, because, I'm dealing with a group, prison reform group, that I actually started to help people to be, when they come out of prisons, to have a support system that really helps them.
Yeah.
And that's the number one thing. You've got to have that new vision. You've got to have that vision. But it seems like we also have to have the piece that you've been talking about the whole time, which is that connection with faith, that connection with the divine, that connection with something that's greater than ourselves.
Yes.
And, for you and your path, it's Jesus Christ. For some, it's Buddha or Allah or, what. But you have to find that connection.
Absolutely.
And if you don't find that connection, I think you're just wandering. You're not going anywhere.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
absolutely agree.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the poverty piece. There have been other challenges, kind of finding my way with, set of kids going to graduate school twice. That's kind of a big deal, right?
Oh, I gotta hear that one. Well, listen, I gotta take a quick break
Okay.
again. So
All right.
we'll take a break, and then we'll be right back.
All right. Thank you.
Attention Zantac users. The FDA requested manufacturers to pull Zantac off the market, noting exposure to unacceptable levels of a cancer-causing agent. If you or a loved one was diagnosed with cancer after regular use of Zantac, you might be entitled to financial compensation. If you have any of these cancers, time is critical. Call now for a free consultation. If you don't win, you pay nothing.
Call 800-797-7641.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is the Courage to Run Toward Your Goliaths today, and I'm talking to Dr. Eli Jones. And okay, so how in the world do we shift our thinking so that we can step into our Goliaths, Doctor?
Yeah.
What I want to ask you that first.
Yeah. How do we do it?
How do we do it? How do we shift into that?
Yeah.
You're sitting around, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do today. World looks like it's collapsing in on me. I'm feeling bad. And, you'd realize that that's not where you want to be, but you're feeling that way. How do you shift into you running towards that Goliath?
Yeah, I've asked that question to the folks that I've had on my podcast, and we're talking about overcoming challenges. And it's interesting. I had a guest who actually talked about taking your thoughts captive. All right. And it's really a powerful concept when you think of it that way. I've had another guest who really talked about the great I am. That's life changing when you believe in the great I am. And I remember this guest talking about, with her children, she's got 4. She told them, be careful what you say. All right. One is capture those thoughts, those negative thoughts. That's what one guest said. The other one said, be careful what you say. Don't say I am a failure. Don't say I can't do that. Remember, I am is life-changing. God said, I am that I am. And that's what she was saying. And I believe that. So it's a combination of capture those negative thoughts, realize you have them, right? Be positive. Think about it in a positive way. Have the courage and the faith to get up and do something. Doggone it. Right. All right. You know what? Faith without
you're so right on with the I am principle, because it's a principle that I've used in my life for many years and coached people for so long to start to declare who they are at the level of their soul. I am powerful. I'm joyful.
Yes.
I'm
Affirmations.
Love and grace, and start writing those out and start, find an affirmation that works for you and start saying it. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. That's what those affirmations are. But remember, it's the I am part. God said, I am that I am. And so when you're making those affirmations, and that's what my guest was talking about, you got to say, I am able, I am capable, I am confident, I am a believer. Those things, as opposed to I am a failure. You've got to capture those negative thoughts. You got to be careful about the power of the tongue that we talk about, right? What you're proclaiming can come to pass. So that's just the beginning, right?
And I'll just mention this, the way I use affirmation, because we're on it, is I like to, the way I learned it is I like to speak them like you just did. I am powerful. I am filled with grace. I feel it in there.
Yeah.
And then after I speak it, I'll whisper it. After I whisper it, then I will mentally chant it. And then after I mentally chant it, I will just continue to feel that until I get it into every cell of my body.
Yes.
So I go from speaking it to whispering it to mentally chanting it to feeling it and chanting it over and over again until I feel it in my every cell of my body. What am I doing? I'm reprogramming that thinking, and I'm broadcasting that from my heart out into the world.
Right.
By the way, we just did some studies on heart, right? We emit photons out of our heart, right?
That's right.
Light photons. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And the more connected we are, the more photons that we're putting out into the world. Isn't that amazing?
Amen. Amen. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Listen, one more quick break. We'll be right back, and we'll finish up here our amazing story here.
I'm Ian Clark with Activation Products, here to tell you that I get the deepest sleeps at night without counting sheep. Ease is transdermal magnesium, which means it absorbs through your skin. And many people are deficient in magnesium, which means they have too much calcium. When you've got too much calcium in your body, you can end up with heart palpitations, sore muscles, stiff joints, anxiety, and definitely poor sleep patterns. When you apply Ease to start your day, then regardless of the stressors in your life, you can rest blissfully, because we've sold more than 750,000 bottles of this effective spray, helping countless people fall asleep without counting sheep. Right to your door in just a few days, we'll deliver your brain the fuel it needs. You can now expect unexpected surges of joyful mental energy. Then click the link below, and for less than $1 a day, you can upgrade your health right now.
Welcome back one more time. Hey, we've got some great sponsors on our show. I hope you'll tune into those sponsors and help them move forward with their products and services as you grow with your life. Dr. Eli Jones is with me, and what I want to shift it into a little bit here today. I want to talk about, we only have a few minutes to do this, but we got a few minutes, thriving as an academic entrepreneur. How do you do that? What is that?
So, I mentioned earlier that, I took the 5-fold spiritual gifts test, and I happen to be an apostle and a teacher, those two things. And I've actually talked to people who really study this. And what is an apostle? I mean, Apostle Paul started a movement. So when you're looking at an apostle, we start things, right? We do things. We love to kind of think about it. So one specialist, if you will, told me, think of an apostle as an entrepreneur. Right. Think of an apostle as an entrepreneur. You're an entrepreneur, Ken. I know you are. I'm listening to you. You're an entrepreneur. Absolutely. And so I grew up around entrepreneurs. Remember, I talked about that. So I kind of developed, I had great role models in this space. What God called me to do is to transform lives through higher education. So I went through a whole process to get there. And I'm giving you the punchline. It was for me to take on higher education and transform lives that way. All right. But I love to start things. I love to start centers, institutes, right? New programs, right? And as a dean, I was actually working toward the funding. That was part of my job as a dean, is to get resources so we can start those things. We had to get donors to invest, right? That's entrepreneurship. You start a new program that's going to transform lives, these students' lives, once they go through that curriculum. But you have to get the funding to build a program, to get the people, right? The programs, the facilities. That's entrepreneurship. So that's why I call myself, I'm an entrepreneurial academic, or otherwise an academic entrepreneur.
I really love that. And I think, there's some people listening to this right now that they may not identify as I'm an entrepreneur, but I have to tell you, you're probably in the right place at the right time to reconsider that.
Yes, absolutely. Especially now.
And here are the signs if you're an entrepreneur. It's very difficult for you to work for other people.
Yeah, right.
You might not even be hireable.
I've heard from so many successful entrepreneurs. That is so true, Ken.
Isn't that funny?
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, man, we got to wrap this up. The book is Run Toward Your Goliaths. It's an awesome book, and I highly recommend you pick it up if you're inspired by this today. And you can get it at Amazon. Can you get it at local bookstores too? Run Towards Your Goliath.
You can order it. Yeah.
You can order it. Okay. All right. There you go.
But EliJones.com.
Okay. Can you get it on your website also?
Yes, you may. You can go right there.
Okay, great. And the website again is EliJones.com, ELIJONES.com, EliJones.com. So hope you'll check it out and pick a copy of that book up. Yeah. Final thoughts here. Okay, you got the microphone. You got about a minute. What is your message to the world right now?
Find your rhythm. Get your groove back. We already have the victory.
Yes, we do. All right. Dr. Eli Jones, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. This was incredible. God bless you.
You're incredible. Thank you so much for being here, man.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank all of you for listening today. Hey, what a cool show, huh? If you are in a place where you want to inspire other people, right? Or maybe you want to get inspired yourself. We went through some principles today to do that. We talked about vision. We talked about purpose. We talked about taking action steps, consistently. We talked about stepping in to your life in a courageous way and, getting out of your own way. We also talked about, listen, it's not about you. It's about what comes through you. So if those messages resonate with you, I encourage you to go ahead and join us at voicesofcourage.us. We got some gifts for you there. We got some great things for you there. And I hope you'll check us out and tell your family and friends about us. Until next time, I pray for you that you will continue to see the unseeable and know the unknowable and do the impossible.